Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RFOX Community Roundtable. And today we are joined by a very, very special guest, the one, the only, the CEO of RFOX Labs, Benny Fairbank. Let's get Josh in here. Let's get G-Dog in here. And let's have some fun, ladies and gentlemen. What's up, Josh? What's up, G-Dog?
What's up, man?
How you guys doing?
Hey, everyone.
Well, could be better, but I'm good, man. You know,
Good.
the market will recover, but that was a punch in the gut, man.
It was certainly not what I think most of us were wanting or expecting.
It's just crypto, man. It's just crypto.
That's how I see it. Josh, how did that community roundtable go?
Dude, it was just me and Derek BSing with each other, man.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm sure that was very fun. Let's go ahead and get some members of the community in here.
The main man himself.
Yeah,
how you doing,
welcome, Benny?
Good morning, guys, or good evening, depending on where you are. How are you?
I'm doing well. I cannot complain, and I think a lot of people are very excited that this is happening. So thanks for doing this, Benny.
Yeah, no problems. I think it's probably a bit of bittersweet, isn't it? It's probably we get a chance to have a chat, but also I think there's probably a lot of people have been spent the last part of yesterday grabbing their ankles.
Maybe. Okay, so let's just jump straight into some of these questions. So the first few of these are coming from a large member in the community, Cog Father. So the first question is, when will you be integrating Tube?
Yeah, so there's a ton of utility coming up for tubes in the metaverse, but also we have talked about the fact that Mint Lab would allow people access into upcoming launches and releases. So there's actually 3 that are very, very close to going now. So we're going to, I won't give away too much, but offer a ticketing system. So what we want to do is make sure that we reward people that have tubes and investors, early investors, in a number of different ways. So not only entry and access to early NFTs, but also lots of features unlocked in the metaverse. So I think tubes are going to become paramount. And I think the first thing was to get the game sustainable and it was scalable. The thing that we've seen with some of the other games that have sort of come out in the last 3 to 6 months is they've sort of been slapped together a bit, and then as the scale has come in, they haven't been able to handle the capacity, so they've ended up ruining their game. So we took a little bit longer to make sure it was right, and then following the release of the game, then comes the utility, obviously, for the cogs and the tubes.
So on the topic of Cogs-enabled games, this week we saw the open beta for Cog Slam go live, which I think personally is a pretty watershed moment in the history of video games. And that's not me blowing smoke. That's looking at it from a very objective view and seeing this integration of actual value within video games. That's pretty awesome. How do you personally think the launch of Cog Slam went?
Yeah, I think that these guys have got a lot of experience in launching games previously and some big titles, obviously. So me personally, I'm not a game developer, so I've got absolutely no idea. So I'm much the same as everybody else. I probably put a bit of pressure on the team, and I was thinking, this needs to get out and we need to get this into the public's hands. But the one thing I always keep saying internally as well is, if we're going to build something, build it to be successful. So many brands and companies launch in this space and they want to get something to market quickly to capitalize, and then everything collapses and falls down and servers crash, and then people turn around and say, oh gosh, sorry, we didn't expect this much demand. That's like saying I didn't expect to be successful. So we do expect to be successful, and I think from my perspective, I'd love to see the wheels and the motions go very quickly now and ramp up, and the cogs, pardon the pun, the cogs start to turn. But the other thing that we have to wait on as well is to make sure that it's enabled in every country. I think there's still some countries, every now and then I get a DM saying it's not in my country yet. So Play Store and the guys that allow access sort of roll it out country by country. So we've got to sort of sit on our hands until it's in all the countries, and then you can really click the features in and start saying, let's go with all the added extras. I mean, for us, it's going to be massive because it's going to be one of the biggest audience builders that we've got.
So on the topic of rolling out to more and more countries as time progresses, what strategies are you and the team going to be implementing just to gain more users and user retention over time?
Yeah, so we've got lots of partners coming on. So like I say, it's a bit interesting for us because like I was talking to you guys the other week, I was saying, we've got a number of things coming up, and then I was saying we'd sort of hit that certain number, and then there's still so many coming up. We sort of have about a 3-month head start on the view of what's coming next than you guys do. So that's why I might be bullish at a time when people think, why is he bullish now? We know what's coming. So we've spent a lot of time, and a lot of people have been waiting a long time to be able to partner with us and to work with us. So we've only touched the surface with companies like Galama, and I can mention them because that's a public partnership. But there's lots of, we're looking at, I'll be just straight about it. We're looking at using the upcoming period to finish the products that we've got, get them on the market, make sure they all click together. But I'm spending a ton of my time looking at potential acquisition businesses and also at opportunities to launch brands in the vault, because I want to start shifting my attention to the vault being a launch pad for brands and having metaverse brands launch out of the vault, and also to acquire companies and brands that have audiences already so that we can tap those straight in. So it'll be an aggressive growth period. So first things first step is as you know, we've been ramping up the team rapidly, deploy those products, click them together, and with that comes massive more utility for the game and also the games that are to come next as well. So games is obviously at this particular point in time will end up becoming the most pivotal next move before the vault.
So, using RFOX Vault as a launch pad, I think that's a pretty fantastic idea. Just because it's such a drastically new experience for people, like it can really put you on the map. And on that subject, how do you plan to take the RFOX Vault metaverse really mainstream to an audience that isn't already familiar, in the crypto space, in the metaverse space? How are you going to get the mainstream user base to really start using those applications?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's a balance. It's a balance of the brands go to where the hype is. And again, I forget who it was now, yesterday or the day before, someone else's, Adidas has announced that they've bought Apes. The big brands, and we know because we're dealing with them, are long processes, slow to market. You've got to do a lot of hand holding, but they're curious. Whereas we've got a lot of brands that we think are going to bring a lot of users and mainstream adoption, that are people that have got fantastic ideas. They see the opportunity with the technology. They've got decades of experience in their respective fields. And now we've got a platform that allows those people to come in and to launch and grow. And all of those businesses bring with them a client base, right? And what we're trying to do is help to enable, and that client base will grow obviously as they launch, and they've all got networks and connections. So we believe it's a combination of bringing in brands with existing users and customers and familiarity. And then also, if you think about the pace that the blockchain savvy people are building at compared to the pace of which legacy businesses are adopting blockchain technology, it's light years apart. There's a lot of these blockchain-based people have cash, knowledge, skills, influence, audiences. So it's a combination of both, but I think the future for sure and certain is to act as a launch pad. We can provide people with a channel. Eventually we'll be able to provide them with a big audience to address new mediums, borderless types of interaction. And I think what you're going to see, and I've said this on a few recent interviews, you're going to see brands from the metaverse launch and then go into real world, that will actually grow faster and be bigger than some of the traditional players, and they'll be able to have the ability to grow faster than any legacy businesses launching at the same time. So I think you're going to find a real shift towards brands launching in the metaverse before they launch in physical items. And that is going to be the next 5 years.
Do you think brands that launch in the digital world first, using the power and influence of different metaverses, how do you think their footprint in these legacy business models, if they try to go after legacy style brands and try to appeal with that niche, how do you think people are going to respond to that, and how will it be different in terms of brand recognition?
I think it's a good question, and I think first analogy that comes to my head is, people would have said the same thing about, if you're looking at cryptocurrencies as currencies, how do you think people will adopt that compared to fiat, for example? I'll tell you why people will be interested in adopting it, because just as crypto and blockchain have completely changed the existing models, you imagine if you are now buying, let's just say I'm buying clothes. You imagine if now I'm buying clothes through the metaverse that I can then wear in real life, but I can actually make money out of that process through trading, through investing early. These are opportunities that are not open to me if I'm going and buying retail apparel or whatever in a shop down the street. It's a whole new ball game. There's an economic system behind it. There's a chance to be a part of it. There's a chance to help fuel it. Some of them will pivot towards DAO type structures and let the people decide what gets created. So there's a whole lot of opportunities that are going to open up, and I think that's what the appeal is. I think anything that people can get a bit more involved in and feel like they're participating in, or they've got a greater interest in, is obviously going to give them much more motivation to be a part of it. So I think the big brands are starting to realise it, and the way I know that is because it'll be mentioned in conversations that we have. They're starting to realise, like the big brands that aren't moving towards blockchain now, or aren't at least having pretty in-depth conversations, are almost too late.
Mm-hmm. RFOX has recently partnered with Reebok, as you previously mentioned, and you were talking about more legacy brands and brands that aren't necessarily associated in the blockchain and metaverse space. They take a little bit of hand holding just to kind of warm them up to this kind of market and this new digital economy. Was Reebok one of those partners that took a little more convincing? And I find it interesting with that partnership as well, and them going public with their NFT drop powered by RFOX and Void Cyber. It came a few days after Adidas and Sandbox partnered. Was this something? Was this an event that kind of legitimized this whole metaverse space for Reebok?
I think no, because they'd sort of done a little test with us before that was sort of people that are Cogs holders and stuff would know. They did a little test with us. I don't know how long ago it was now, maybe 6 or 7 months ago. But answering the question in part, yes, the hand holding's there. One assumption people make is because someone else went, they went, for example. The thing is that you have to be very, very careful that the information that you give is locked down, that you get is locked down because of that exact situation. So those deals don't get struck in 3 days, they get struck in 3 months. There's a lot of time, planning, effort, video creation, content creation. They have, where they need extra convincing is, and this is a massive win for us, and I don't think it shows in the market, and probably would have if Bitcoin had behaved and all the rest of it. But the fact is, as I stated, and I would have made more about it in the right conditions, is that for a brand like Reebok to go out and risk their reputation, because you think about it, they could go with anybody. For a brand to go out and launch a product that is going to be a showcase of them arriving and using a tool that is not yet commercially available, the RFOX NFT white label platform, is a huge testimony to the fact that we have been able to, through Void Cyber and the work that we've done so far, prove that what we've got makes sense and works. But yes, they need a lot of hand holding because their brand's on the line. And you've got to also take into consideration that yes, that the Adidas and Sandbox would have been crap, we've got to go. But have a look at all of the NFT drops on Ethereum. I think I saw an article recently that said 96% of them get pushed back. They say, sorry guys, we wanted to release it, but we don't want to sacrifice the quality. There's problems with, it's all crap. But the thing is with Reebok, you can't get them to send out a link to 4 million people across all their social channels and then turn around and say, oh, sorry guys, it's going to take us 3 hours longer. We just want to make sure that we get the quality right. We uploaded heavy videos with music files that actually played at the exact second that it was supposed to go out on a product that's not commercially released yet. So I think if that hasn't given them confidence, nothing would. But as a result of that, it's given a number of other very big brands that we can work with now confidence as well that we're watching and sort of wondering how that would play out. So for the audience, it was a small drop for free that is Reebok, and that's cool. But for brands watching, it was a significant moment for us.
Will we see those Reebok shoe NFTs as a wearable in the RFOX vault?
We can't say anything about what happens next with them because of the nature of, as I was just saying, basically, unfortunately, everything remains very closely NDA'd and locked down due to the fact that the competitors are now in the space and things can move very quickly. So we've got to, we release our information when they release theirs. So unfortunately, the nature of those types of relationships are very locked down until something happens. But the brands that are building from within the metaverse are much more sort of, because they're sort of launching now and they're new, are much more liberal with what comes next.
Gotcha. So in the metaverse space, seeing CoinGecko partner with you guys, I think was it's really significant because this is one of the largest names in crypto. How did CoinGecko, they've been making posts of different metaverse projects and different promotional material for the metaverse space in crypto, and it seems like RFOX Vault has been left out of it.
Mm-hmm. I can answer that. The thing is that a lot of the stuff that they do, because they're not a commercial content producer as such, so a lot of what they've done or created for the metaverse, and they've got a slower to market process, was done well, like a long time ago. So even though it was put together ages before we sort of got together. And then so as a result, we now have the ability to do standalone stuff with them. So they'll start off with that, and then obviously we'll see some exclusive stuff coming out with why RFOX and how RFOX. But for someone like us, we've got full-time people creating content non-stop. That's not what they do. So they sort of clear things up and get it done outside. And we do deal with some outside people that create content for us, and the turnaround times can be, a month to 3 months, depending on what it is. Whereas internally, we can do it in a week or two. So all I will say in relation to that is wait until closer to the upcoming sales and all the rest of it, and I'm sure you'll see more targeted stuff with us.
Gotcha. I just want to let you know, you may be having some mic issues right now.
Oh, I'll switch to data.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I just want to let you know, just so people could hear you a little better.
Is that better?
Yeah. Thank you.
Is that better now?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all good. No worries.
Adrian, can I just jump in with a question while we were talking about Reebok and big brands?
Yeah.
Benny, how crucial and important has Void Cyber been in helping to build out what's currently happening with Red Fox?
Oh, they've been amazing. There's lots more stuff coming as well. But I think the thing was that, as you guys know, I sort of do a lot of the public-facing stuff, and I do a lot of the public-facing stuff because in the beginning that was needed and I was the person to do it and all the rest of it. But I was also doing all of the talking to the brands and trying to do the strategy. And when you're juggling multiple companies and a growing business and lots of people coming on and then trying to talk to them about the vision as well, just the bandwidth issue alone was difficult for me to be able to give the focus across all of those things at the level that they were required, especially as we grew. And one thing that Void Cyber's been able to do is bring in a ton of experience in onboarding brands and working with big brands, and coming in and having followed us for a long time and then having worked with us behind the scenes for, a long time now, they've been able to join the dots and say, this company would be a great partner, this company would be a great partner. And the good part about Void Cyber is they've also talked to those companies, told them exactly what to expect and what's required and how it can work. And so when they bring those meetings to you, it's not like the first of 90 meetings. It's like, it's almost like a confirmation of what's already been said and spoken about. So they've been extremely influential and important in the business development side of things. And as a result of that, they're also not only bringing in their own clients, but all of the people that are approaching us and all of the people that we've got in our network, we can now get them to help follow the same process. And that's alleviated a ton of time off of my hands and off of our team's hands to be able to focus on the strategic and longer term vision. So yeah, they've been instrumental. It's been fantastic. And I think you're going to see that relationship deepen. And we've got, I think what you're seeing at the moment as far as partners is kind of, again, that's why we get bullish, because we see what's coming in the next 2 to 3 months, and the partner list is, you're not seeing much of what's happening yet.
So on the topic of a bullish timeline from partners, it seems like you guys have been releasing major partners for the individual quarters as they've been launching. So we're seeing Yield Guild Games as one of the marquee clients. Have you pinned down another marquee client within that gaming quarter without naming any names, or are you still trying to find someone who can fill that space?
No, we've got more people than we've got marquee stores. I think that, as you'd be aware, there's a lot of brands that want to come into the space. It's more a matter of being respectful and honest. Is that we've had, it's more a matter of, in the beginning, you're scrambling around and you're trying to sell a proposition to big brands that they can't see anything, right? It's an idea. And you're saying, I've got an idea. And the big brands are saying, oh, it sounds okay, but then the only thing they can reference would be like a Decentralization or whatever. But then when you start getting visuals, you start being able to put the verbiage together better and selling the vision, it makes it a lot easier. Now, some of the people that we were speaking to in the beginning versus the people that we're speaking to now are light years apart as far as their size, magnitude, and all the rest of it. So what we're trying to do is sort of juggle timelines with what we think is going to be the right type of partnership for us based on where we are. But we're in the driver's seat now. Before we were in the back seat, sort of tapping people on the shoulder and saying, please come, please come. Now it's more a matter of, to be brutally honest, we're in a situation where people are saying, can we buy shops in advance? And we're saying, no, you can't do that. You have to go through the auction process. So because we know that we're not going to be able to give all of the brands that want to come in a marquee store, of course, I think the fear is, and that's something that's a legitimate concern for them, is, well, what happens if we go to an auction and we can't get in? Or what happens if we go to an auction and it doesn't work out the way you thought it was, or we're not armed with it? How do we do that? Can people bid on our behalves, or can you buy it and sell it to us, or how does it work? So there's a lot of people that are sort of just working out how to get in if they can't be a marquee store. So as far as demand is concerned or potential is concerned, there's not a problem there at all. It's a matter of logistically working out who's best for which marquee shop. So then it becomes timeline, because your A choice might be ready tomorrow, or it might be ready in 6 months, and then your B choice might be ready tomorrow. So it's a matter of what's going to be best for the long-term prospects for the vault, and they're not easy decisions to make, to be honest.
Do you anticipate, because there's more clients than there are marquee shops, for major clients to be bidding up the RFOX vault land sale for the Arcamoto quarter? Do you expect those time around compared to Calanova?
It's really hard to say. I think we think the same thing as you guys. I'm sure we go through the same process as you guys in the thoughts of everything. And being honest, when we see the market tank a little bit like we did yesterday, we think, does that provide a better opportunity for them or a worse opportunity? Does that mean they can now get in easier? Does it mean that people are scared because of the market conditions? So we don't know. But ultimately, if we went the route that we're talking about now, and I want to raise this now because it's a very big thing, is that this auction could be different to the third and fourth auctions, in the sense that we've got a number of brands that want to launch, and I'm talking about people that have got tons of experience. They're coming into the blockchain space. They've got their own companies. Those companies are already saying, there's a lot of them, and they're ready. They're wanting to go. So I think you're going to find that, at the moment we've got probably a combination of speculators, people that actually want to build but not quite sure what they want to build. We're now getting to a position just before Q2 sale where almost all of the people that we're talking to now know exactly what they're going to build. They want to shop. They want to use it. They want to use it for what it's intended to be used for. And their concern is what happens if people get in that just want to flip, and we end up in a situation where we get costed out because of flippers. We want to actually get in there and add some value and provide some potential growth and do what you want it to do. So that's the nature of the space. That's the nature of the game, and that's something that's the beautiful part about having open auctions and all the rest of it. But ultimately, we're getting to that point now. I think every day we're speaking to at least 2 or 3 businesses that are saying, how do I get a shop? What I want to do is, here's my idea. How do you guys get involved? That type of thing. So that's extremely exciting because it's huge validation that we're on the right track, but we already know we don't have enough shops.
So how many shops do you think in the Calanova land auction went to businesses who wanted to build in the metaverse space as opposed to just some NFT flippers?
Well, we know of 12 or 13 that have sort of come forward and said, this is what we want to do. Some of them have been very forward with their plans. There's a couple that have multiple businesses that they want to do as well. But there are a few that we still don't know. Whereas with Arcamoto, I think that we've probably got at least, 25 to 30 businesses that have identified themselves in advance saying that they are desperate to go into Arcamoto. So that's a stark contrast, and that should only snowball to the third and fourth quarters, of course. We've also got, if you're speaking to multiple people a day, you've obviously got more than 25, but it's a matter of some of those people are still conceptualizing and still trying to pull together their plans and see how they go. So we know that the interest from legitimate builders is increasing hugely, especially since the meta push and all the rest of it. So, but to be like, it's like, how long's a piece of string? I can't answer exactly what's going to happen. All I can tell you is that that's what we know. How it plays out, I don't know. Whether people got spooked because of the market drop, you never know. I know that I've got a few friends' projects that are launching in the next couple of days, and they're freaking out. They're saying, I think it's really bad timing for us. We might pull back. And then I've got other the other project that I know that's launching saying that's the best thing that could have happened. So it's just, you just don't know, do you? And it depends what happens in the next couple of days with market movements as well. But I think that the legitimate businesses that are trying to build something of value wouldn't be deterred by what's just happened.
Do you plan on a few days before the Arcamoto land auction? Do you plan on announcing your second marquee client, or is that not any news that's dropping anytime soon?
I think we're just sort of arranging what is the most logical thing to do as far as that's concerned, and as far as whether it will have the impact that we want it to as well, because they're kind of big things, right? And it's based on a timing thing as well. So it's possible. It's possible. It's just a matter of whether we get all our ducks in a row. We're going on to start to do some more mainstream crypto-related promotions as well, starting early next week, of course, starting to go on more channels, bigger crypto-based channels as well. So it's a bit of a deviation from the last one where it was very much the lower focus on the crypto side of things, and this time we're doing a balance of both, and we're going quite hard over the next 3 or 4 days in relation to crypto channels and influencers and stuff like that as well. So it's a bit of a deviation.
So with Arcamoto, that's going to be the gaming themed quarter. How do you anticipate a lot of the land plots being used in that space?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you're asking, whether most of the people that are saying they want to go into Arcamoto, if they're gaming companies, the answer is they're a mixture. I think we've got what we've had as well as a lot of games pitched to us as well and say, we've got a game, it's play to earn, it's launching on X-Chain. We've got tons of subscriptions, it's getting a bit of buzz. We want to shop. How do we do it? How do we run an instance of a game? Can we make it that you walk into the shop and then you go into a room and the room's the game, or how does that all work? So we do have a lot of interest from the game side, but and I think that those gaming companies would definitely want to be in Arcamoto for sure. But we've also got a couple of industries that I can't tell you because that'd be it'd give away who they are, but a couple of industries that are very niche but massive, with only a few players in them, and they're wanting to get into Arcamoto, and you'd think, but if you look at what they're building and doing, it would make sense. But I would say if I had to have a guess on percentages, it would probably be like 60% or so are actually focused pretty much only on gaming, and then the rest are just nothing to do with gaming, really. I don't think people really care. It's more, for some businesses, it's like, I just want to be able to plug into the metaverse and I'll be happy to get a shop in any quarter.
So what is going to be Cog Slam? What kind of footprint is that going to have within the Arcamoto quarter?
Yeah, so every time we build a quarter, it has a theme, and then it has buildings that are purpose-built, So as we know, in Calanova, there'll be a purpose-built function centre, and that can do anything, but ultimately it would be very much centred around exhibitions and galleries and meetups and all the rest of it, whereas you go into the gaming quarter and you'd have esports and tournaments. And what we think is going to be the case, and we know this because we've been reached out to a lot over the last couple of years actually, is there's a lot of games out there that don't really have any monetization models, and they're looking for ecosystems to plug into. So whether they want to be acquired, whether they want to be, and that's a possibility for some of these things because they have audiences and player bases. Some of them want to work out how to monetize. So they're all looking at ways that they can plug into Cogs. So how could Cogs be used in a broader sense? And we've always said that, Cogs stands for keys to other games. We want to make sure that we move quickly now, once our game's out and established and that's our showcase, to how do we interconnect Cogs into as many games and ecosystems as we possibly can. So I think you'll find that Cogs will have a it's a massive integration piece into the vault.
So on the topic of Cogs, there's a lot of verbiage that's thrown around in the community, and I think for people who aren't super into the Cog sphere of things, what are Cogs? What are tubes? What are Cogus? What are all of these different types of NFTs?
Yeah, so Cogs was created out of the need for two things, really. One, too many of these online skin sales, 70% plus, were fraudulent or extremely risky for the both parties involved. And the other part was that if a developer closed down a game and you had a skin, you'd lose it. So what we said was we need to have this transferability. We need to have blockchain behind it so that people can make safe transfers. And then we turned around and said, the issue that we see is a lot of people are building one game, and that one game has these NFTs inside, and it's almost like the game is built to give the NFTs value. So what we turned around and said was, rather than just building one game, why don't we build an interoperable platform of games and also SDKs so that people can so that we've actually got a network and that people can plug in. So they get the benefit of the user impact and network effect, but also we would benefit because Cogs holders would appear in more games. But Cogs themselves are playing pieces for what will initially be Cog Slam, and you notice in their shape, they're round, they're like a casino chip or a round disc that is actually conducive for a lot of different styles and types of games. And the tubes are literally completed sets. So you've got border types and rarity categories, and they can be collected and put into a container, much the same as if you were collecting stickers as a kid or cards. You could put them into a book and it would you complete a set. That completed set unlocks staking, and it's going to start unlocking whitelist tickets and tournament entries, and also access, avatars, all sorts of different privileges for having completed sets. So the ultimate goal, though, is to, now that the game's out, start bringing in a lot of trading volume on the Cogs, because if Cogs can also be used as rewards or prizes in the play to earn, that's a very big win for us, because RFOX is finite, obviously, and Cogs, we can control the supply of Cogs as well, so that if we can get a lot of trading volume and we can get a lot of interest in the Cogs, then it means that Cogs, if we've got a lot of liquidity in that secondary market, Cogs basically trade as something of value, something of economic worth, and that makes the proposition of bringing in other games to our ecosystem even more appealing, because this is something that's fully transferable, and it's not forcing us to use a limited supply of token as well. So that's the race, is to get the Cogs utility and value up. So it's, if anyone's holding Cogs and thinking, what are you going to do, or when are you going to introduce it? Trust me, that's the crux of the plan. That has to happen for our longer term vision to be successful. So that's something we work on all the time in the background.
What difficulties did you have implementing the Cogs and play to earn utility into Cog Slam and then making it compliant with app stores?
I think it's, they've got a lot of prerequisites and requirements on the build quality and the code audits, and making sure that they also like to make sure that they lock down a system where they get their clip of the ticket as well, obviously. But I think that the other thing that the sort of additional thing that some of the other games might not have is that RFOX is an ecosystem token, right? So if you've got an ecosystem token that's being given out in a free play to earn game, you've also got to get the balance right, because you don't want to be giving out a ton of tokens and having people saying, I want to convert or sell those. And then you say, well, hang on, that token's also used across everything else that we do. So that has a direct impact, because if the game was massively successful and you didn't have your economic model right, it would be all going out and you'd be thinking, okay, so what's going to bring the buy side in? So that was also a key consideration and a thing that took a long time to get right. And like I say, now we've got to really put the foot down and push the utility and the value of Cogs, because that is going to be effectively a game changer for us going forwards. And I think that outside of the basic build requirement requests that the App Store and Play Store have, which are pretty significant, I think we also had to make sure that we are selling and addressing and propositioning the play to earn model, how it works, what the crypto integration, the cashing out. You have to have the fiat on and off ramps, and it all has to be very transparent for them as well. So it's not easy. And I think a lot of the games nowadays are trying to work out how to avoid that and how they can still gain an audience without going through a platform that's going to give them an audience. That's the catch-22 for a lot. So it's getting harder and harder, and you're having to do more and more what people would assume would be centralized things to try and partner with a platform with that many users. So there's trade-offs in everything that you do, and they require you to do extra builds, deviate from what you would have otherwise built. So it's not easy, but if you want to get it right, it's worthwhile.
So what difficulties have you had listing on the iOS App Store compared to the Google Play Store?
The short answer is Google Play Store sort of get back to you and respond. The apps, the Apple side of things is like, I think we've been through the process. We went through the process like 4 times or 5 times, including like registration, payments, going through the motion, trying to get a green tick, and then them coming back and saying, oh, you got to pay, and then you've got to go through this registration, and us saying, we already did that. So I think I ended up on the phone 4 or 5 times myself saying I've been through this process 5 times, because they have to ring me at the last stage to sort of verify, and that just doesn't happen with the App Store. Apple's service is appalling. So I think Apple's just really, really difficult to deal with, whereas the App Store's, pleasant in comparison.
Do you have an ETA on an App Store release, or is it still pretty up in the air?
It's rolling out country by country. So we don't get a timeline on that. We just get told, you've done it, it's approved, it's there. So now it just sort of it's up to them. They just basically say, boom, Australia's live, boom, this country's live, and away it goes. And that's why you'll notice that from the game side, they haven't been massive on the marketing side yet. They've only just been doing little bits through the social channels and stuff like that, because we're still waiting for it to be deployed, and we're also waiting on people's feedback. And so people are coming back and saying, for example, I'm in Australia and I got it today. Okay, awesome. So we really don't get an advanced schedule. We don't get to see, and that's a frustration of people as well. I think people sort of think, how come you don't know when that's going to happen, or how come you don't know when this is happening? And if we knew, we'd tell you. We just don't know. We just have to wait on whenever they list, and they'll tell you it depends on our schedule, it depends on this, it depends on who's in front of you in the queue, how many games we've got launching, and it's Christmas, and it's a popular time for releases, and so we really don't get clear answers. So it's a very difficult situation that the team's in. All they can do is basically just sort of go out there and say, can you let me know when it's working, let me know if it's not. And people are posting screenshots of saying not available in your country yet, and then other people are saying I'm in. So once we get a wider coverage of countries, we'll just put the foot down with marketing, which is ready to go.
What made you want to do Cog Slam as the first Cogs enabled game ever?
Yeah, so it was a matter of what could we do that would be a little bit familiar, and B, have the potential to have that virality or to go viral, because and you wouldn't know, right? Because with games, they always say that it's very hit and miss, and sometimes gaming studios spend millions on games, pump something out and go, no one likes it, or it doesn't work. And then you get Flappy Bird and stuff like that just go bananas, and you think, how, why? And gaming development studios all around the world scratch their heads trying to wonder why. So what we thought was, is there something from the physical world that's been played before, done before, had longevity? And if you look at Cogs was sort of made a resurgence in the 90s, but, you know, it traces back to Hawaii and Japan and stuff for a long, long time before that. But the fact that it had a global schoolyard presence and everyone was playing it, and people know it, and it brings back that nostalgic point of view for a lot of people that are in our part of our demographic for different products and services. We thought it was a good nostalgic play. We know that it could potentially be viral. We get the concept. It's an easy concept to explain. And the shape of the pieces and the style and structure of the pieces lend themselves to being used across a number of different like games. So that was really it. It was sitting down and working that out. And the other thing, of course, was back in the day when we first started, we thought to ourselves, it has to be relatively simple. It can't be that complex because you're dealing with blockchain and all the rest of it. And we didn't have funding to build a AAA game, which would have cost north of, $10, $15 million at that time, plus all of the blockchain integration and skills and efforts that needed to be able to do that. So we sat down and said, what could be done combining all of those parameters, and that's where the idea of Cogs or Cogs came from.
So did you envision Cogs in tandem with Cog Slam, or how did you envision Cogs?
Yeah, so Arc Lego was the one who originally pitched all of that and put that together. So Cog Slam was, yes, 100% there. The game was thought of first and foremost. As I was saying before, a lot of people bring out an NFT and then go, oh crap, we need a utility, let's build a game. Whereas for us, it was more sort of what's a great game that could be built for blockchain, and then how could the NFT sort of enhance that and be that interoperable backbone behind it. So the game was envisaged first. And there was a really good game out in Southeast Asia at the time called Slam. And that was a very cool game and similar, but had tons of users, no real play to earn. It was extremely popular, always appearing in the top downloads. It took a while to get going, but once it got going, it was just wildly popular. And we still speak to the guys that were behind that, and they're saying that we've done it the right way, we're on the right track, and now it's just a matter of opening it up and it'll just go. Theirs was very, very successful, but what happened was a company acquired the company that made that game because they couldn't find developers. And they took the developers from the gaming studio and used them in e-commerce because they were building apps, engaging apps. So they basically just turned all the games off. They didn't want to pay server costs because they were not the same target market or audience, and they had no monetization models, and the server costs were getting ridiculous because they had tons of players. So we had so many reference points that showed us we were on the right track, so many things we could reference from and to. And now we've got a game that's very similar to that one. I think our version is obviously better because it has the play to earn and all the rest of it. So I think there's every chance that once this gets rolled out into each of these countries and we start to put the foot down, there's no reason it won't do what that one did as well.
What type of game would you like to see get made Cogs enabled?
That's a good question. Not being a game developer or a designer, and I don't obviously have time to play games, it's a very, very difficult question for me to answer. But ultimately, I think anything that brings value to the people that are bringing games in or creating games on our platform, as well as also to the holders of Cogs. I think as long as it's adding value to the Cogs holders and it's bringing people into the community, I'd be happy to see anything.
When you and the team were making Cogs Slam and developing Cog Slam, were you guys focused on trying to make sure it wasn't just a mobile game with play-to-earn mechanics slapped on top of it? Did you really want to bake in the play-to-earn mechanics to enhance the user experience and the actual gameplay progression?
Yeah, for sure. But I think that one thing we've seen is over the last year to 18 months, the landscape's changing rapidly and wildly. But again, going back to the whole, you look at Axis and that they've led the way with a simple game. The thing is that if you've got a near endless supply of tokens coming out that and those tokens are you've got a lot of players that are sort of putting sell pressure on something. You've got to have both sides value, right? So the value proposition changes and the value proposition is evolving. So the other thing that you've got to be careful of or mindful of is not to box yourself into a corner and end up with a game or a model that you think to yourself, crap, we can't get ourselves out of this. The landscape's changed and we're behind. And I think you're going to start seeing that with metaverses as well. You're going to start seeing that a few early movers built a certain way or set up a certain way that doesn't allow them the flexibility to move with the markets and with the changes and all the rest of it. So that's something that we're very cognizant of, and where as a team we know already, but we're learning every day as far as how do we make this as flexible and fluid as possible so that we can actually move. And that's why having an interoperable platform is really important, because if you've got a number of games, a number of different tournament styles, a number of different interoperability elements, we've got that flexibility and freedom to be able to point at different things, pull something down for a little bit and modify it while you've still got tons of other stuff going on. So the bigger it gets, the more options you've got. So we never planned to build one game. We never planned for the platform to just be Slam. It was always going to be more and more games. But we've always also said we will never, ever be the ones that build the biggest game on our platform. It'll be other people that come in and say, got it, see the proof of concept and the model, how it works, and see the tools. I'll tell you what, we've got an idea and we want a fast route to market, and that's what we'll provide. And that's what will provide continual ongoing value to the Cogs holders.
Have you seen any big players get interested in the Cogs enabled and play to earn mechanic games and working with you guys, or has it been mostly more indie developers?
No. More the opposite, more AAA developers. But the issue is that they also want commercial deals, so it's a matter of how do you incorporate what you've got with what they've got. And again, a lot of people want to make deals that are based on tokens on RFOX or something like that. So, for example, it's not hard to get someone to come along and say, hey, we'll integrate your token or accept it as a form of payment, or we'll build a game for you that does X, Y, Z, give us some of your tokens or whatever. So everybody's always sort of, if we can bring you value, how do you bring us value type of thing as well. But we've again got to take into consideration that our token is covering the whole ecosystem. So sometimes if you make a deal in a corner or you make an isolated deal, it could have an impact across the whole ecosystem. So we're very, very, very mindful of the fact that we want long-term value for RFOX and for RFOX holders, and we want to do what's right for the token holders and the token. So if it makes sense and the deal brings in, as I say, value to those people, we don't like the idea of other people having a say on what happens to RFOX's value or price or whatever. We want to make sure that that's something that's protected and that we're looking after and making sure that whatever clicks into our ecosystem adds that value. So that sometimes we might turn down some deals. Sometimes we might make decisions that would outwardly seem a little bit unpopular, and we've had to do that lots of times. But I think in time it all comes out and people see that we're making decisions that are the most beneficial for the long-term value. We're not building for just a week or 2 weeks or a quick pump or something like that, because if that was the case, we would have done almost everything differently. We would have got our token price to a much, much higher price, and then probably would have said, see you later, and gone to the Bahamas or something like that. But we're not that type of people. We're not the type of people that actually are trying to build for some sort of rubbish, garbage thing where a doxed team will do what we say we're going to do. It's a matter of how long it takes. And we want to make sure that there's huge life-changing value for our early investors, and that's what we're focused on.
It seems like you've taken a pretty centralized approach in terms of content development and rolling out content. But because you are in the crypto and blockchain space, do you plan to eventually decentralize more aspects of your business, if all of it?
Yeah, so the whole idea of our model is to say that if you get 20 people in a room and say, make a pizza, that pizza is going to be a monstrosity, right? The thing is that people will decide on whatever is going to be most beneficial for them, what is going to be the most, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But if we start the foundation and say, here's a concept of what a pizza can look like if you bake and use our oven, and now we're opening it up for other people to come in and and to contribute and to use the oven and to bake your own pizzas and do whatever you like, then you do move from centralized concept and build out of original proof of concepts. And then you head towards the more Roblox type of model of saying, now we've got the tools, now we've got the support, we've got the infrastructure for other people to come in and click in. Now, our model has never changed from that. And we've been very vocal about that since day one. And we've basically said that it's going to be much faster for us to grow if businesses that already have audiences come and can plug into what we've got, as opposed to us going around and knocking on everyone's door and saying, here's $4, please on board into our ecosystem. That's a very slow, tedious process. So if we've shown people how it works, show them what we can do, show them that it's successful, and showing that now that you've got tools for white label platforms and for launching a shop in the metaverse, it's all geared towards moving towards, we are the people that will introduce you. So we're the people that introduce the sellers to the buyers and the tool makers to the builders. That's always been the plan. That will always continue to be the plan. And then we'll get towards closer to being what is a true decentralized model, still not the utopian model that a lot of people in the blockchain space believe will be the way forward for most things, because we know that certain elements will not be allowed and can't work due to regulatory legislative requirements and issues and all the rest of it. But we definitely want to go towards, we've shown you how to do it, we've provided you with the tools, off you go. And you can see already that's happening with the Vault model. We take a clip of a ticket, a transaction fee. So we're basically saying, here you go. We're implementing quartermasters and saying they'll govern the quarters. So we're already moving towards going from the centralized startup idea into, right now we're starting to hand over.
So as you're looking to decentralize more aspects of RFOX Labs over the course of a few years, do you eventually plan on forming a DAO or something of that nature, or just keeping it mostly as a company?
There's the opportunity for both. We definitely are considering and looking at that. The options are based also on which direction the setup and structure go as well. Like, for example, we're registering companies in Dubai at the moment as well. We're getting very global because of the fact that the demand is starting to come from everywhere. And a lot of the different regions of the world will require you to be structured a different way. So, for example, Dubai will say your company must be a company that produces revenue and charges money, but we welcome blockchain, but crypto needs to be almost like a separate company. America, where we've been able to set up in America now, they wouldn't have let us set up if we had have gone in as a, for example, if the Vault took all the payments and then allocated who those payments go to, we wouldn't have been eligible for bank accounts and structure and set up in the States. But because we say the payment goes through, we take a 2% transaction fee. We're like a Redditor model or a model that's not classed as a payment processor. We're like a software platform that connects buyers to sellers. We're perfectly okay. So the thing that I would say the short answer to your question is it's possible. It just has to be carefully structured, not to topple the rest of things. And we do have a more complex model because it is a venture builder that has multiple businesses. But I keep saying this, if you haven't ever read The Outsiders, 8 Unconventional CEOs, read that book, because that very much talks about the type of model that we're headed towards, of having these businesses that are set up and run in a decentralized nature as their own venture, but leverage and plug into the benefits of the other ventures in the ecosystem. And it's very, very much decentralized in the true sense of the word. But as far as the DAOs and that are concerned, they're definitely not ruled out. It's a matter of how we fit them into the system.
Do you think some of the reasons why Decentraland, because they're effectively a DAO, why Decentraland has had trouble listing on Google Play and the iOS App Store their Decentraland application? Do you think that's in part because of their decentralized nature being a DAO?
Yeah, sure, but I think it's a lot of elements deeper than that as well. But yes, 100% it's structure related for sure. That's why I'm saying a lot of companies that started early in this space have built, and I'm not saying necessarily them, I'm just saying a lot of companies that have built, and it will be the case for metaverse companies, have built without actually thinking about the long-term structure as far as getting to where they wanted to get to. So that's something that we've always taken a little bit of extra time, spent a bit of extra money, and tried to make sure that we do that the right way, because, again, we wouldn't be structured or set up the way we were setting ourselves up if we weren't planning on being around for a long time. We see those mistakes. We've been around for a long time in traditional business. We understand what we need to do. But unfortunately, in the world of crypto, sometimes those things that we need to do to make sure that we've got that long-term value for the investors and holders and all the rest of it is you have to do stuff that's a bit painful, and you have to do stuff that takes a little bit longer, and you have to do stuff that complies. You can't just stick your middle finger up at everybody. It just doesn't work. So the thing is that we're looking for adoption, we're looking for value, we're looking for opening up and not being a siloed, closed system and project like Meta will be. So this is very much something that we're very cognizant of and mindful of, and it's a dilemma that a lot of these projects have. But again, look at a project like ours and look at others that are doing the same type of thing as far as setup and structure is concerned, and you'll quickly identify who's around for the long term and who's not, and you'll also work out who's a bit screwed because they've boxed themselves into a corner and they can't get out of it. I think you'll see some of these companies will effectively fork their company. They're going to have to.
What have been some of the difficulties when trying to make all of your different ventures, because you are a venture builder, all of your different ventures to be linked together and work in a pretty frictionless and ways that actually enhance the experience of all the other ventures?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have to do like a thing we call company framework mapping. So what we do is we go around and we say, what do you require with a list? And it might be like chat, payment processing, inventory, stock control, financial systems. Then what we have to do is basically say, why we don't want to have a different one for each venture. So data segregation and all the rest of it's important, but due to compliance and rules and laws in different countries. But what's really important is that you're using the same base tech infrastructure, because otherwise you do have a very friction-based type of interactions. So we have to sit down and talk to each other about what each other's building and then how that can be leveraged for each other, which helps to give an understanding of what our business is across the whole ecosystem to each of the ventures. And then we have to work extremely hard, and it gets harder and harder the bigger you get, to make sure that these ventures understand what's happening in each of the others, because we're so focused now on each of these ventures and the products and getting the products launched and all the rest of it, that you put your head down and you bum up and 3 weeks go past. And so we're just now about to roll out sessions where we go through and do like product showcases and show the other ventures what we're up to as far as the build is concerned, what we're about to roll out, because that's something that's extremely interesting to each of the ventures, but that's also a great and a bullish indicator of how fast we're moving and how far we're getting now, is that there's so much for each of these ventures to do that they don't get enough time to surface and have a look at what the other ventures are actually up to as far as their build's concerned. So it's a really full-time process. We've got multiple project managers, and we're doing lots of Scrum and Agile and stuff to make sure that these things are ready and deliverable at the same time. Otherwise, they can't click together. And due to that type of build, there's dependencies. So one business could actually get delayed because the other business that hasn't finished their integration piece or the tool or whatever. So it's a hard juggling act, but I wouldn't swap it, because the short-term pain, the long-term gain that we get with efficiencies and scalability is going to be massive. It's definitely worth the trauma of what we're going through.
So on the topic of delays within the RFOX Labs ventures, we have seen the Arcamoto Vault land auction be moved to December 9th. I think in one of the older roadmaps, it was in late November.
Yep.
And on that older roadmap, we saw the Vault MVP launch. That was in late Q4.
Yep.
Has that date moved, if at all?
Yeah, we're putting out the updated roadmaps with the new website and all the rest of it now. So that's actually, we're just going through the final parts of testing to make sure there's no bugs or anything in that. What we've done is we've basically, and we're going to announce all of this, so I'll give you a little hint, but I'm not going to give away too much. What we'll end up doing is the longer term rollout for the whole open world and all the rest of it will actually come forward. And then everything that is in the interim or has been is roughly 2 weeks or so out. Now, the reason it's roughly 2 weeks or so out is because once this whole meta thing, and I know that we all love to hate Facebook and Meta and all the rest of it, but once Zuckerberg explained to the world what the metaverse movement was, how big it was and how much it means, we realised that we had to, and this is no secret, so no problems, but we've always explained that the virtual space has been built on Unity. And there's a reason it's been built on Unity, because it also doubles as a game. And what we've done is decided that because of the fact that it's got a lot more attention and a lot more focus now, we've pumped a lot more time, effort, money, and we're expanding that team massively. We just made a couple more internal key hires. We've appointed more external agencies. We really want to up the ante on the gameplay side of things, and we really want to up the ante on making sure that it is much better than people anticipated that it would be in the beginning. This is a bigger play now for everybody concerned, and conversations like that were had by Zuckerberg sort of also gave us more confidence to throw more in as well and to put a lot of eggs in that basket. So the reason that Arcamoto was pushed back a little bit is because of the fact that we want to make sure that we've got those gaming elements down pat and 100% right. We already had visuals really good. We had gaming elements were coming along, but not as fast as we liked. So now we've got, as I say, extra staff, extra people, extra external teams working on really unlocking some stuff that wouldn't have otherwise been there prior. So we're very confident that this will now, the whole thing will launch earlier, but it will also be far better than it would have been previously. So, I couldn't be more bullish on the fact that we've just gone, screw it. We've got one chance at this. Let's throw the kitchen sink at it.
So after Meta Inc. had announced their plans to create a metaverse, we saw a very significant rise in the price and the value of RFOX and VFOX. What brands came forward to you after the announcement of the metaverse, and did you see more demand from brands to get into the metaverse scene?
I think we saw more confidence in the brands that we were talking to, and I think that brands that had sort of poked around a bit and sort of said, we're thinking about it, sort of came back and said, yeah, okay. I think the one thing that really that helped us was we do spend a lot of time talking to these people, and we actually take them through, I won't name names, but there's a couple of really big chains that are bigger than us and got, I guess they've got bigger teams. I'm not sure if they actually do, but they've got bigger coffers and war chests and all the rest of it. That they know how painful it is to deal with the big brands, and the big brands say to us that when they talk to us and all of them, we're the ones that go through in painstaking detail, show what the long-term relationship and partnership would look like, how it would all work, whereas a lot of these other chains are basically saying, let's bring out an NFT, charge an absolute squillion dollars for it, and then we take, 30% or 40% for helping you go to market from that, and then see you later. And so when they didn't realise that wasn't anything bad until they speak to us and we say, don't do that. Do what we did with Reebok. So do a free drop and go out there and get your sort of name out there. Doing this is the first step, then the second step, third step, fourth step, and trying to build longer term plans. So I think that once people realised that the metaverse wasn't a passing fad, it's important, it's going to be around for a long time, and it's going to be significant, people then started turning around and saying, well, we'd rather be talking to someone who wants to partner with us for the long term than someone who wants to just do a pump and dump cash grab. So, and some of these brands are still, being very honest with you as well, some of these brands that we're talking to are big brands, and you guys would be very, very happy if we went out and announced deals with these brands. But some of these brands are dying to get money. They're losing relevance and market share, and they're charging $3 to $5 million US a year on a 3-year basis to have a partnership with them. And blockchain companies higher up the food chain are actually paying that, and paying $15 million for a 3-year deal to say, we got a partnership with these guys. And we just turn around and say, I don't understand what value that adds. You're paying a brand $15 million for a 3-year deal to be able to then do all of the work for them, be on the hook if anything goes slightly wrong, with about a 5% chance of recouping your money. The only reason you would make that deal is if you thought it was going to get you a token price pump, and then you could actually benefit from the price pump of your token. So we're just not going to play those games. There's enough brands out there that aren't like that will work with you, do want a longer term partnership, and is prepared to sit down and work out something that's mutually beneficial for both sides. But I don't think a lot of people in the space realise that's how it is. Now, you think about it, if your token's gone from 2 cents to $7, like some of these have, in a very short period of time, you go, 20 million bucks, 15 million bucks to partner with XYZ. Oh, screw it, just pay it. The token price will go up by $1 billion. And that's exactly how people are doing deals now. But we're just not interested, to be honest. We can do that. There's a ton of companies out there on the market. And the problem is that you guys don't see is that we, as blockchain companies, you all see the same shopping list. And it's literally people who wants to pay us that money first and will be your partner. So when we talk about these partnerships, and I know it's an important question for exposure and all the rest of it, I know a lot of people say to us, when's the next partner? When's the next partner? We spent a lot of time weeding out and making sure that we get the right ones. And sometimes we pass up on one and then we see another blockchain company say, we've partnered with XYZ, and we think, we know exactly how much that costs. We know exactly what it is, and we know exactly why you did it. And we don't want to play those games. We're just not interested in spending all of our development money to try and get a token pump.
So when you're partnering with these different companies, it seems to take a few weeks just for all that information to become public for the end user, such as myself and a lot of other people in the community. Do you have the partners, without naming any names, do you have the partners lined up for some of the next few quarters?
Yeah, sure, of course. And on other projects as well, like other projects in our ecosystem, and building partners and partners who are going to bring out amazing stuff in the vault that are not necessarily going to need to have shops, but will provide the technology and stuff to do some pretty mind-blowing stuff. But of course, we have all of that, but it doesn't take a couple of weeks, it takes months. And a lot of these are far down the level of progression, and some of these are sort of 3, 4, 5 meetings in and might take another month to 2 months to sort of come together. But we know exactly what is coming. We know who we've got in our roster. We know how they're going to click together and how they're going to enhance what we've got. So that's a frustration for the team as well. We've got a lot of new people that come into the team and sort of say, why don't you just tell people what's going on with that? Because that would be huge. And we say, that's not how it works. You can't do that. We'll lose the deals. We just have to wait. They've got competitive, as you said, with Reebok and Adidas. It's extremely competitive. People move fast. And what we want to do is provide something that's a first or adds huge value. So, yeah, I think you're seeing the tip of the iceberg for what partners and stuff. And I think the thing is, if you're seeing the tip of the iceberg and we're bringing in brands like Reebok, you can probably imagine what comes next. And when you've got, again, this is the biggest clue I can give you. If brands like that are prepared to take a chance on you when you don't have the product commercially released yet, who else do you think is prepared to take those types of risks, and what do you think is going to happen once the actual commercial product is released? It's that's all I can say, really.
So in the next quarter launch after Arcamoto, it's going to be the music quarter, and I think one of the really interesting things, at least from a community member's perspective, is imagining walking through those quarters and seeing how the metaverse and virtual reality aspects of those experiences can really enhance people's senses. How do you see the music quarter being used, and what types of things are going to get enhanced by being within a metaverse?
That's a great question. I can't say too much without giving away what's going to happen, but we're spending a lot of energy, time, effort, and focusing on partners that can provide those audio central experiences. That's extremely important. And also from a visual perspective with the music as well, because visual is a big part of the participative and audience-based immersive type of experience. So you need to couple both of those things, and then you also need to couple those with huge artists, and you also have the opportunity with huge artists to work with products as well. So that's something that we are working a lot on, and the music quarter will 100% be enhanced by stuff like that. But we understand how important the sensory stuff will be, and it's been said a million times that, you know, these early iterations of your Decentraland sandboxes, RFOX vaults, we'll look back in 5 or 6 years and have a look at those early versions, and I'm sure if they're not like the way we look back on Commodore 64s and stuff like that, then I'd be very, very shocked that if everyone was able to bring out the first thing and it was an Xbox from day one, I would be very, very shocked. But if you're working on the sensory stuff and you're working on the fully immersive experience and you're partnering with people that are the best in class at those types of things, then that's a massive head start as well. And that's something that we, for example, you might not be able to integrate with a lot of things, the visual with the audio as it currently sits. So there's a lot of companies out there working to solve those problems right now, and I guarantee you that we'd be talking to those.
So if I'm not mistaken, the last time we saw a development update on RFOX Vault was, I think, when you and Lenny did a weekly AMA in there.
Yep.
So from that time to now, how far has RFOX Vault's development progressed?
Yeah, it's progressed from a visual perspective and from the layout perspective a lot. And now we've got to put in the gaming elements, but we've also got to be cognizant and mindful of the fact that what we had done before is sort of taken a VR headset walkthrough and showing people where we're up to. And a lot of people don't have the context. They're not necessarily following the project closely or whatever. So as you would have seen, we received a lot of positive feedback from the people that we were sharing the journey with, but we were also receiving some feedback along the lines of, that's the finished product. Holy crap, that's not good enough to be a finished product. Why are you showing that? And you're thinking, it's not a finished product. We've just shown you that this is a walkthrough of where we're up to. But people that are just coming in or following 20 projects and they just pop in and watch a video don't really understand. And so we sort of provide more up-to-date for some of the people that would be coming in and partnering. But like I say, what we did was we went through a period of, I think, 3-4 weeks where we did a lot of code transfers and integration and making sure the code base was all sorted and transferred and strong. Because once you've got your elements of walkthroughs and you've got your displays and all the rest of it, then you've got to get down to the technicalities. Because as you saw the last time with Lenny and I, we'd first put in IK inside of Ready Player Me, and it's the first time we'd run around, and the movement of the characters was still kind of rigid and not upright, and we were just having a play for the first time and showing you guys how to do that. So then what you have to do is then spend tons of time on different teams on fixing the elements of how do you make sure that you're more upright, how do you make sure the motion's more fluid, how do you make sure that the experiences don't change from headset to headset or person to person, and build quality from one release to the next release. So we're continually releasing APKs and developer updates that we use to go through and say, hey, this thing's gone backwards, this thing's gone forwards, this thing's this way. And now what we're doing is we're at the point where we've done the code transfer, we're bringing in these outside extra game developers and stuff, and we're actually focusing very, very heavily. And we've just recruited a few heavyweight game devs on the inside, specifically for the Vault, not for games, to really smash out the gameplay side of things so that we can do those really cool immersive Easter egg hunts and really build in that immersiveness as far as like the esports and tournaments and participative, and especially when we get to the music quarter and having concerts and performances and stuff like that. So a lot's progressing from the code side. We've given the visual glimpses, and now what we're doing is we're bringing those two pieces together. So, and making sure that there's all those gameplay elements in there as well. So that's exciting. So I guess we've been through a non-sexy period for from the external visual perspective, but from the code perspective, we're going through laying the foundation for rapid deployment and growth. Someone's got their hand up, I think, there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's me. So we've spoken about sort of the short to mid-term of what we're expecting. So looking further afield, you always talk about, you always start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
5 to 10 years down the track, what visions can you share with the community about what you're expecting from this whole project 5 to 10 years into the future?
I think we'll be known as a brand launcher and a brand builder as well. So I think that obviously the venture builder model with the DBot type of setup and structure is great for launching and for building a platform for businesses to launch from and to build from. And once we've got that infrastructure in place, and we can turn to helping to also incubate those businesses a bit, seed them, and again, being data guys, we know what businesses people want to build, where the VC money's going, where it should be going in the next 2 to 3 years, and we can start looking for that. But I think what you'll see is that we will end up launching a lot of those brands ourselves. And I believe that our proposition and our focus needs to be on making the Vault and the ecosystem as valuable as we possibly can from a reputation perspective, because we believe that if we launch brands within our metaverse, that they will have the backing of the right type of people, injection of funds, the right tools, an audience. And I think we can be a heavyweight brand builder from scratch. So, you know, for many years, we've looked at stuff ourselves as like, you look at data and it'll say that people in the western quarter of a city are looking for a hamburger shop, but there's nothing good there. So they all drive 7 kilometres to get a hamburger, for example. So there's a lot of data that will tell you if you have a business that does X, Y, Z in this particular area that caters to this, you've got a higher propensity and chance of success. Now, to give you an example, we were talking to some fashion companies, and a fashion company might say it's going to take us 1 year and $4 million to be able to get to the point where we can launch a brand in the metaverse. And then it's going to take, we're going to have to buy a shop, and we're going to have to get blockchain developers, and we're going to have to get tools, and we're going to have to understand how all of this stuff works. Whereas once the vault's operational and going, we can turn around and say to those people, we can give you a shop, we can give you the tools that you need. If you've got the suppliers and all the rest of it, we can shorten that to 2 to 3 months. And we've done the sums on it, and you can do it for about 1/8 of the cost. So we have an unfair advantage then of being able to launch, get to market, and be guaranteed to tap into an audience that they would otherwise have to buy or build from scratch. And that gives us a huge possibility, especially in some of these Southeast Asian regions, for if they knew a vault was coming to their country with a reputation as a launcher for brands and exposure. This provides a much quicker path to market with a much higher chance or probability of success. So I believe you'll see that we end up becoming a launcher of brands for sure.
So these local vaults are going to play an extremely important part in cities around the world.
Yes. So you can see now, just by having a conversation like the one we're having today, and it's very easy if you sort of follow the project from a distance or whatever, you'd think, what's happening with the game, or what's happening? If you understand and get under the hood and understand the magnitude of what we're talking about, these are big pieces, and the payoff is a long-term payoff and not small. You definitely would never be able to accuse us of thinking small. But to get these pieces and elements together, and again, I'm going to be very honest with you, we've had fewer people than we needed, and we've had fewer, as you know, we've never taken equity funding externally. So we sort of started to grow. Once we got ourselves into a good position, we've been playing catch up, and we've been trying to make sure that we bring on these people. But the thing is that as the more people come on and we finally catch up to where we needed to be at that time, we're already progressed 3 months. So we need more people. We need a bigger team. We need more builders. And this idea, every single VC we talk to or every single outside partner we talk to have no comprehension of how we've got to this stage with the resources that we've had. But it's just testimony that we're on the right track. We've got the right plan, and we've got a number of people who believe in that vision. So this is not a quick thing that gets done by snapping your fingers. But if it gets done right, and we wouldn't be 3 years into the build to now do it wrong, if we get this right, there's no reason why we can't be an absolutely massive and significant player, not only in this space, but in the legacy space as well.
So in these more region-specific vaults, are we going to see, say, in a Philippines vault, are we going to have 4 quarters like the global vault, or is it going to be just one specific quarter?
No, it'll be the same, but we've already tinkered with this, and we've already put out a semi-public. We put out financial projections and stuff, and as a result of that, people could have done the back math, but we did it based on population and based on cost of acquisitions, and we did it based on how many shops. So the thing that would differ is there might be slightly more shops in some of the quarters, but as you know, our longer term focus is on digital inclusion. So the difference would be that there would be localized offerings. Now, what I mean by that is if a person in Norway goes into the global store and tried to buy food, and the restaurant was a Filipino restaurant, good luck delivering that, right? So at the local level, we've talked about having more sort of hawker food courts and smaller stalls and stands as well, because these people will be providing virtual and in real life deliveries and product shipment and stuff like that as well. So the landscape will change slightly from the perspective of there'll still be your big shops, but there'll also be these smaller, more affordable food court style, hawker style, and smaller business opportunities as well for people to get in at the local levels.
So, are you mostly focused on the local level building for specific countries, or have you looked at even smaller versions of that? Say, at least in Western countries, you could have like a New York City vault, and say a San Francisco vault, and a Houston vault.
Well, we were looking at Asia, and Asia's the same. It's got like some of these countries have massive cities, right? And we've talked to some of the people that we're close to in North America and Europe, and they've asked us about franchise opportunities and would it be possible to do vaults in those regions and countries, and they've talked about that exact thing, saying once the concept's proved and the demand's proven, then there's nothing stopping you from going in as satellite models into the cities. But so we've been talking about concepts and ideas for passport systems, and it's kind of cool if you can be in New York and visit the Philippines vault and cruise around and have a look at the color differences and style differences and the feel differences and the language differences. It's kind of like a very cool experience to be able to travel around, get stamps in the passport and show that you've been to all these different places and check them out and see what the different offerings are. Because at the moment, right, if I say, for example, I don't know, what's a band that young people, everyone likes, like 21 Pilots, for example, I want to go to a 21 Pilots concert. I'd have to look in a directory and say, is it in Singapore? Is it in Hong Kong? Is it in Vietnam? How am I going to get there? The idea of being able to like go to different vaults and attend different shows or audiences or events is kind of a very cool concept. And that's why I keep saying we're very focused on starting with the end in mind and working our way back, but we're also having to be very focused on building the pieces that allow us to get to that point in the journey down the track as well. So again, if you rush stuff or you build stuff in a way that is not conducive to scale, and has inherent security risks, or you didn't think about the gamification part because you wanted to get it out by the 4th of 1 month because you thought the token prices would go up, you're going to end up screwing yourself very, very hard. So we have to think about the longer term, and with some of the types of partners that we're working with and will be working with, we can't be thinking about slapdash short term because their reputations are involved as well. So yes, I think that, Adrian, that's a very exciting thing for us, and we're very, very excited to go into that local level. And like I said, I'm starting to transition into what businesses could come in to help the Vault, to help RFOX. How do we launch brands? And then that would be the next part as well, is opening up in the new cities. And I think that we'll know we've made it when the big brands are paying tons of money to come into the Vault and see it as being, yes, got a shop or got a space in the Vault, as opposed to the initial stages where you're going around saying, we'll see if we can lock a brand in. It's a very different world, obviously, and the different steps of the journey. But once we get to the local level, this will explode.
So moving into the local level, so moving into the local level, are you worried about these more franchised vaults, that the quality of them is going to be lower than something that's developed by a first party, or are there going to be safeguards in place to make sure there's consistent quality throughout all the vaults?
No. We'd make sure that it was, like I said, the most important thing is that the brand reputation will be extremely important, because that's what's going to also attract the businesses. So it'll be staged and rolled out very selectively and carefully in the beginning stages until you reach that inflection point where a vault's coming and it's got that prestige and that same type of that influence on it. So that's why we're taking a lot of time to do these company framework mappings and getting the structures right, so that we don't get into a position that allows that type of possibility of things to happen. It would be, we would build the system to allow the same type of rollout or integration across all the different environments and no sacrificing quality. And that's something we've got a lot of experience in with working with brands like Virgin and Ooredoo and these big multinationals. The brand is so important, and you can't just hand that over to people and say, go with it, run with it. That's the one thing you see with Branson and those types of guys, is they have an active interest in making sure that their brand is protected. And I've seen a situation in time where he's turned around and said, if we don't fix something that it affects the reputation of the brand, then he'll pull it. And that's what he thinks about. He thinks about the brand, the reputation, fix the structure to make sure. So we've had some good teachers over the years, and I think that that would be if we're going to spend as much time, effort, and trauma as we have to go through to build these new roads, Adrian, the last thing we're going to do is allow that to be brought undone by a 5-second move. So I think you can trust that we will do that part right.
Looks like you.
How do these votes? Yeah, so Adrian, how will these local, say, franchise votes affect VFOX holders? Will it still be the same 1% of transactions and even 15% of land sales?
The land sales,
what sort of things do you envision there?
The land sales, I can put down as a question mark, because the land sales structure that we currently see was set up to sort of provide some value until a point where revenue started being produced through the worlds. But one thing that we have confirmed and mentioned multiple times is, yes, at the local level, VFOX holders will still get a percentage of every single vault that rolls out. That's why some of these bigger institutional players are trying to work out how to get more VFOX, because this concept, once it is rolled out, once it takes off, every single new vault that rolls out will also have a piece of that pie for the VFOX holders.
So over what period of time are we looking at distributing the VFOX rewards for each land sale? Or is it basically going to be dumped all on the market at once, kind of like we saw with the VFOX farming? Or is it going to be a sustained drop of RFOX into those pools over time?
So the current structure is 90 days, and we have said that we're not bound by that. We go on data and we look at what works and what doesn't work, hence the changes between the first and second land sale structures. So the current phase is 90 days, but what we assume will happen is, because the reason we chose 90 days is because we would tally the revenues for distribution every quarter. But once the system starts going, technically we would like it to be able to be that you just put your VFOX into a pool and it just continually keeps going, so that once the next quarter batch is finished, the new one starts. So it's just an endless stream, which would be absolutely perfect. And that way people can take them and they can take their VFOX out, put it in at any stage. People can join or pull out at any stage, and it'll be proportional to the pool. And that way it allows new people to get in and other people to get out, but it would always be done based on the length of time that you commit your VFOX to the pool.
So are you just internally anticipating a land sale to happen every 90 days, or is this just the first wave of them and there's going to be a few months or years without one?
No. So it'll just be for the first vault, and then the deployment of the next vault at a local level will be 100% based on how quickly the concept gets enough support for that to warrant rolling out at the local level. But as far as additional land sales is concerned, so for the global vault, for example, and we have mentioned this a few times, is that the one thing that we have suggested and mentioned in the past is that we would look at potentially doing fractional ownership in some of these event halls and stadiums. So you might be able to have a partial ownership. So once we get up and running, and we've say got concerts in the music quarter, and it might have great international acts and artists, and people are buying tickets to go to these events. We have said that we are open to the option of allowing people to invest in a percentage of that building, either be it very small or larger, by fractionalising it, and then you would get a share of the profits that go through those buildings. So that's something that we have mentioned that we're very open to as well. So outside of the shops, that would be the only thing that is on the map now for the potential for future sales, especially for the top level, the first vault.
And will this ownership in those more public spaces, say the event halls or the stadiums where people are performing, are those going to be tokenized in a VFOX type coin?
So we haven't explained how we do that yet. We have suggested that the most logical way to do it would be some form of fractionalized NFT, or like a sharded NFT would probably be the most logical way to do it. But we haven't defined an exact or committed to an exact way of doing it. But the same rule would apply. Any transaction that goes through the vault, the VFOX holders would be entitled to a percentage of that, regardless of in what capacity or where.
So in the topic of profits and revenue targets, and you putting those numbers out there publicly, what is the RFOX Labs annual revenue? How much is profit, and what do you see the profit incentive going forward 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line going to be?
Yeah, so the first year or so of having products, the cost of goods has been an extremely favourable percentage because of the fact that we're doing mostly digital items, right? So we did say that we would anticipate, and we're obviously in December now, that we're looking at doing approximately 20 million in revenue for this year. And as far as profit is concerned, more than 3/4 of that is profit. The next year we've got a target of around $65 million in revenue. As we build the teams, the larger teams, and we're investing in resource and the capital expenditure, the profit will inevitably probably go down a little bit as far as the percentages are concerned, but it's not hugely significant until we get into the third or into 2 years from now. So still a large percentage of that 65 million will be profit. So the thing is, for a company at our stage and where we are in our journey, to already do 20 million revenue this year is significant, considering that there's a lot of projects out there that aren't actually doing anything at all.
So what do you see the revenue targets of the RFOX Vault being within the first year, and after that 5 years and 10 years down the line?
Yeah, so we think that because it depends, like there's many ways that you can cut this, right? Like, for example, I'll use Grab App or Uber. Uber will say we take 20% as a transaction fee, right? So that's the meet, and we're connecting the driver to the customer. So, but the revenue gets booked through their app. So the payment gets booked and goes through their app. But they're getting 20% of that minus their cost to serve and all the rest of it. But the way that we're looking at it is if we've tallied it the same way to say what goes through the vault as far as overall percentages are concerned, and as far as revenue is concerned, it's going to get into the billions quickly, because of the fact that all of these companies that are operating out of these vaults will all generate their own revenue, right? So it's not necessarily revenue to us. We get the percentage or the transaction fee, but their revenue would be significant. I can recirculate the papers. We've actually got pinpointed numbers, and the VCs that we've talked to and the valuation companies that we've talked to on validating the numbers have said anything from conservative to these numbers are extremely achievable. We've tried to be pretty cautious. We've allowed for delays or legal issues, or we've tried to incorporate everything. So it is possible that whatever we put out is eclipsed depending on the level of popularity of the businesses that come in.
So what made you want to specifically focus in the blockchain space as opposed to more legacy business models?
Because I was an expat overseas working, trying to work out how to send money back to my country every month. And I was in a situation where I thought there has to be a better system. This is ridiculous. It's so, I guess, fragmented. And I was saying that I'd send $7,000 US, for example, back to Australia. This is going back a long time ago, every month, and $5,000 would make its way back. And I'd say, this is ridiculous. You all say, you've got low fees. How's this happening? And then Western Union would say, we take our percentage, but it's pretty small. And then it's your bank. And then the bank would say, no, they convert the Kuwaiti dinar, for example, where I was working at that time, Kuwaiti dinar into US dollars. And then the US dollars get sent to Australia. And then their exchange rates are really terrible. And then what we have to do is exchange the US dollars into Aussie dollars. And we use a service for that. That's not our fee. And then we put our fee on there, which is really small. And then you end up with $5,000. And you think, Jesus, this is like, there's got to be a better system. There's got to be a better way. So blockchain enabled us to be able to use a multitude of different currencies and in a borderless capacity and fashion, provided the right way. So from the currency perspective, it made perfect sense. But we also wanted to focus on digital inclusion, and a lot of the people that we would potentially be onboarding or having as customers, especially down the track when things become more localized, would be, how do we make sure that we're also catering for people that are unbanked? How do we make a situation where we can help onboard people that are not credit card equipped or don't have bank accounts? So we've been thinking very much about what technology could power that movement, what technology could open those doors, and that's why we've always been very much of the opinion that we'll take whatever's in your pocket. We'll work out how to convert that through RFOX and how to make sure that we collect something in RFOX on the way through and then distribute that to our holders. So we've been very mindful of the fact that we need to be compliant in particular countries that do not allow cryptocurrencies to be used as a payment. And that's why we've been very loose with the structure of, we'll take whatever's in your pocket. Now, I've heard people say, well, you're based in Vietnam and you won't even take RFOX there. Like, what sort of a stupid company are you? But the thing is, we're not allowed to legally take RFOX in place of anything that can be currently purchased with the Vietnamese local currency. It's illegal. You go to jail. So the thing is, you're talking about people who say, I want my token price to go up, versus people that want to actually build a legitimate business and don't want to go to jail, and try to work out how to actually still make that benefit the RFOX holders. So if you scratch below the surface and understand what goes on and why people are doing things a certain way, it often makes complete sense. And if you look at what we've chosen to do over what could have been done, we're doing things the right way, and we're trying to make sure that we look after those holders and provide value for them. But other companies that might be based here that do accept the currency are doing it at such a risk that their business will not continue to operate for any period of time.
So, what was your first exposure to cryptocurrency and blockchain solutions? When was that?
Oh, a long time ago. But like back in the early days, I was just talking about this the other night. One of my friends was talking to me about a guy who was mining it, and we found out that he'd actually got in trouble, and we thought it was for him having mined Bitcoin, but it was something to do with, he was doing something else in the background, jacking into electricity or something like that. And we thought it was due to that. So we thought it was like this poisonous thing that we had to stay away from. And that was right back in the very beginning. And then a few years later, when I was overseas and trying to work out how to deal with these issues, I was sending money back. I thought to myself, there has to be a better way. What can we possibly do? But I didn't see crypto as anything other than a way to circumvent those payments and that painful process. And then when I started getting into the technology side of things, I started thinking, all right, this is amazing. Got into the deep dives, got really interested in it, and then sort of said, okay, how do I get involved with some projects to learn how it works? Because I'm not a hugely technical person, even though I've worked in technical companies my whole life. How do I really understand what can be built here, what can be done here, study models, study concepts, and then started really getting into the technical side of it. And then I think for the last 4.5 years, I've actually been running or involved in working in decision-making positions in blockchain companies. So, so the journey's been a long one, but it's been in stages and it's evolved over time. But then in, I think, 2017 or so, I thought there's a lot of guys that have coming into the space for new. It's starting to take adoption, and I should help these, like my family and friends. So I started doing a little video channel to help friends and family, and then it ended up being, a little bit popular. So I started passing on advice to those guys so that they could learn from things that I'd learned over time and didn't want them to get burned with and all the rest of it. So so that's basically the journey.
Where do you see RFOX Labs as a venture 5 or 10 years down the line?
I see it as a Fortune 500. Otherwise, I see it as we've failed. I want us to be top of mind household name. I want us to be known as a disruptor, as a company that came in and made a significant difference and has launched a number of significant brands. But most importantly, I want us to be known as a company who did good and gave back and left a good digital footprint. As stated, we don't publicly advertise this stuff much, but we found homes for lots of kids who'd lost their parents through COVID, and we do a lot of local, making sure people have got vaccines and donating and giving money back and looking after, and that's just at a very small level. We don't do that to sort of gain clout because, to be honest, most token holders don't give a toss about that anyways. They just want to see the price go up. But we make sure that we are giving back, and we make sure that we're having a positive impact on the environments that we're interacting in. And so that's a big thing for us to have corporate social responsibility and to make sure that we're leaving that positive footprint, that we're not just taking, that we're giving in equal measure. And that's very core to the philosophy of digital inclusion. So I think we can still get to being a Fortune 500 without actually, pardon my crass explanation, but without raping the whole system as you go through, like a lot of these people are doing, just pillaging. And that's why it's easy to sort of be an anonymous character and hide behind something and get in there and try 3-4 projects at the same time, and you don't know that they're the same people, and see which one comes off and just pillage and try and suck value out of the system and then not provide anything back. So I think that we'll try and hold ourselves to high moral standards, but also make sure that we're really making a positive impact, but at the same time grow to that Fortune 500 level. That's our view anyway.
So what venture do you think is going to put you on the map as the major catalyst for that Fortune 500 status?
E-commerce, streaming, and cashback, 100%. So games will be a great catalyst for bringing people in, which is great. The Vault and the metaverse will be a big play for a platform for launching things and getting people into the ecosystem. But this, the whole e-commerce streaming, as we've said for ages, which is why we've taken so long to make sure that all the other pieces are in place before we roll this out. We built the app ages ago. We had the structure in place ages ago, but we would have had to plug into YouTube and we would have had to do things a lot differently. And what we realized was that if we have an ecosystem and a model that supports a large number of customers and brands and businesses, it's a lot easier for us to have that impact for sure. But that's going to be the explosive sector. And that's why we've also got a bit of an e-commerce and retail focus on the metaverse as well, because we know that this is just going to be the ginormous one. This is the one that Novogratz and all the others were interested in. This is the big one. So that will come at the end once everything else is launched.
Without saying any specifics about what RFOX may be working on, what is a venture you really want to get into?
I think anything we want to get into, we're in. I want to actually, I want to see the ecosystem have its products finished, click together, and then I want to work on helping launch these brands. And I want to show that, because the thing is that the metaverse is at the moment, people are still trying to define what a metaverse is, or trying to change the definition of the metaverse so that it fits their narrative. And I think that a lot of people are going to say, yeah, metaverse, what does that actually mean? If we can turn around and show what it actually does and means, but we become a market leader for launching brands and getting brands into the market that are standalone, successful brands that can also compete in the outside space. That's the type of venture that excites me personally a lot. Is doing the DBOT model on top of our DBOT model. I think that's going to be extremely exciting to watch, to know that we've got all the tools to help these young aspiring companies or ideas, or people with ideas come through. We can connect them to the right people, tools, systems, audiences, and help them launch businesses. And that's going to be extremely exciting. And all of that will obviously have plug-in value to RFOX, and we'll structure that. We've already got a model in mind and a structure in mind that will actually benefit RFOX hugely by doing that.
So what makes RFOX Labs and RFOX Vault unique compared to other metaverse projects and other companies who are developing these ventures in the digital space?
I think each of them has got their own type of focus, and I think Sandbox is obviously it's got a lot of a Roblox focus to it, and the developer platforms for games and all the rest of it, whereas we're thinking more sort of, how do we provide value behind the whole immersive experience, borderless VR, and how do we connect people and brands in a way that also takes into consideration gaming and entertainment. So I think our proposition is very, very different, and I think that model is our model is a lot more layered. I think you could probably say complicated as well, but we don't like the idea of having a parcel of land and then not actually putting anything on it, and then just saying it's barren and it's got lots of flippers and stuff like that. We wanted to actually have some structure and to build that foundation, and then let the creators come in after that, click in their businesses and really take it to the next level. So I think that ours will evolve very quickly, because you have a lot of, and we already know some of these partners coming on are the best in class for their technologies and for some of their cutting edge stuff they're bringing to the market. And that's going to be something that is very, very different and provides a unique selling proposition to some of our competitors for sure and certain. So I think ours is very different to any of those that are out there, and it will just keep evolving once these other players plug in.
So what type of developer tools are shop owners going to see within the next few weeks to really provide that enhanced e-commerce experience?
Yeah, so they'll get a shop owner's portal, which will allow them to customize and configure their shops, and to be able to set up what their shop looks like and their layout and their structures. And then obviously the white label NFT marketplace platform actually starts allowing those people to create their own NFT collections and then to display those. And the great part about it is the app would also obviously allow them to display those much the same way as Reebok or Miss You or Chasing Space will, and some of these other projects that we've got coming on now, in the sense that they'll also have their own website as well and their own marketplace that can tap into the open seas of the world. So all of that sort of comes together, and some of the shop owners will actually say, well, I've already got my own NFTs, they're already out on the market. And in that case, I just use the shop owner's portal to design their shop and to display the NFTs that they've got and configure them in a way that they want to sell them. So, for example, if it could be that they have display cases and someone buys it and it tops itself up with something different next in line, or it's 20 deep of the same thing. So they'll have a chance to sort of work out how they'll structure that and set that up. And then we've got other shop owners that want to do stuff like Icon, that want to do things like meetups and gatherings and stuff as well. And YGG will obviously want to do play to earn education, meetups, giveaways, lots of different stuff as well. So the shop owners portal will allow people to start configuring and setting all of that up ready.
So you talked about Icon and YGG. How do you think these brands are going to play a role in enhancing the experience of the vault?
Oh, I think massively, because they've also got users. So they'll bring users into the vault, but they'll also be able to offer products and services to their customers and to their user base that they don't otherwise have. So it's complementary to a lot of these companies in many ways. So it's in their best interest to sort of work with us to sort of gain exposure and to get the word out, to make sure that people know that that they've got increased offerings and enhanced offerings for their user base. But we've also got communities coming in to the vault that are exposed to RFOX ecosystem games and everything else that we do, in addition to what they already know, through supporting Icon. Pardon me.
So both of these companies, you've brought up Icon and Yield Games. They both have tokens that are able to be purchased on decentralized exchanges. And in one of the previous Wednesday Fun Time specials with you and Lenny, you talked about introducing more coins onto RFOX.finance. Are ICX and YGG some of the coins that you've added around? And if not, what other coins?
Yeah, it makes sense to use partners' tokens for sure and certain. And obviously having the ETH pools ready, it's just a matter of when we go. That's also important. And as you know, we've talked about the fact that we've got a ETH to Wax bridge coming up as well, so that opens up more opportunities as well. So we're just sort of working out when's the right time to launch that and with who. But yes, we're looking at people to work with and partners now for the right pools. But of course, the whole idea of finance was never just to launch VFOX or just to facilitate the auctions or anything like that. It was to provide ongoing value to our token holders. So if you think about it realistically, all of the infrastructure is there, and a lot of the value that can be provided hasn't even been plugged in yet. So it's extremely exciting. And the thing is that once we've got this great growth at the moment in wallet holders and users and numbers and people coming into the community, and that's only just going to expand and expand as time goes on. So yeah, we're looking forward to launching those pools, but I can't say it without giving it away. But yes, Icon and a number of other projects from their side as well, 100% would be looking to be added very shortly.
So on the topic of these coins, you brought up the fact that we're already seeing a Wax Ethereum bridge, and you set up the ETH staking pools. I think one question that people have been playing around with since even the day of VFOX, and that launch was, are we going to see VFOX go cross-chain, and how will those mechanics work when it comes to the VFOX staking?
Yeah, so the answer to that, well, just a heads up, guys, I'm going to have to jump off in a second as well. I didn't realise the time. I've actually got another call to jump onto. But the plans for VFOX in now, we haven't planned to bridge at this particular point in time. It can, of course, happen. But for simplicity and for the way the pools are currently structured, it makes sense to have it where it is at the minute. But that's not just to say that it can't or won't be down the track, but there is no immediate plans to move VFOX.
Okay, gotcha. Well, thank you, Benny, for giving us some of your very valuable time and insight. I think everyone here is very grateful that you came onto this roundtable with us.
No problems. And I think thank you very much for taking 2 hours out of your time as well, guys, to come and join and listen. And I hope it provided a little bit more clarity and insight into what it is we're trying to do. It's a massive spectrum and a massive project, so it's obviously going to take time to all come together. But really appreciate you guys taking the time to learn a little bit more about it today. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you all for who have been listening and watching. It really means a lot, I think, to everyone here who's speaking at this. We're doing this, I guess, every week now. So we're gonna have one next week. Benny, we hope to have you on at some point in the very near future. I know you're a very busy man, changing the world and how we interact with it. So thank you once again, and I hope everyone has a great day, afternoon, night. Take it easy, y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you.